But here it is. Obama is said to consider naming J.P. Morgan's Daley to top White House post. And he's the former head of the Commerce Department. President Barack Obama is considering naming William Daley, a J.P. Morgan Chase & Co. executive. Can we have anybody in the government who isn't J.P. Morgan Chase or Goldman Sachs? I mean, most of the third world countries that are being looted are run by Goldman Sachs or J.P. Morgan alumni. I mean, they just run everything. There's your problem right there. A bunch of insider trading swindlers. And the Congress has been gelded. They sit there with their knees knocking, afraid of them. Such a move, which is still under discussion, would bring Washington veteran. Oh, a veteran. That's what we need. Yeah, when you're a mobbed-up crook from a crooked organization caught, selling derivatives into the world market and rigging the stock market and selling people housing stocks that are based on fraud, that makes you a veteran. Well, let's exhume or do a seance and make Hitler president. I mean, he's a veteran of government. Such a move, which is still under discussion, would bring a Washington veteran, oh, yes, and someone with strong business ties, to the business, La Cosa Nostra, into the administration as Obama sets out an agenda for the second half of his term while dealing with a Republican majority in the House of Representatives. I got another headline. Obama pledges to use executive power to trump Congress. Well, why not? If you got a bunch of slimy, oily bankers, robber barons in there stealing everything, why not have Obama just tell Congress, I'll put in greenhouse gas taxes even if Congress doesn't pass it. Congress passes spending bills. They've got to originate even in the House. The Senate can't even do it. But, hey, who needs all that? Stroke of the pen, law of the land, kind of cool, as Begala said back under Clintonista era. And all you conservatives, mainline conservatives, you're about as conservative as Mao Zedong, who don't like this. I mean, you love the unitary executive, the Fuhrer precept. When the president does it, it's not illegal under Bush. You liked all those no-bid contracts. And then the neocons had a talking point on radio. They'd go, of course American companies deserve the contracts. It wasn't no-bid contracts for just American companies. No, it could be any foreign company they wanted. French, German, didn't matter. Dutch, Japanese, Chinese. Most of the time it was. It was that it was no bid. Only one company would be given the deal. I mean, you like mafia when it's your little monkey, George W. Bush, who looks like central casting from a Psycho movie. I mean, you bought that hook, line, and sinker, so you should enjoy it under Obama. You should lap it up. You should love it. You should love what else is coming. And I'm telling you this now, so when the Republicans take control of everything, you don't go into a mind-numbed coma thinking everything's okay. Just like you stupid Democrats with Barry Soetoro, a.k.a. Barack Obama. I'm sick of it. President Barack Obama is considering naming William Daley. Oh. Daley's highly respected by the business community and has great connections. Oh, Douglas J. Elliott, a fellow at the Washington-based Brookings Institution and former J.P. Morgan Chase managing director. Oh, so another J.P. Morgan guy tells us how great he is. Oh, look, Don Corleone's underling, Sonny Corleone, is telling us how great he is. He said in an email, naming Daley to the top post, he said, could help mend fences with executives who have complained the Democratic administration is anti-business. Oh, you got to love that little show. Oh, Wall Street completely bankrolled Obama for the bankrupting of America, 4 times the McCain money. Again, not that McCain was good. It was time for a new birdcage liner, a new shill, a new foil, a new front man. And so they gave us Obama. And then whoever Wall Street puts their money on next election, that's the bad guy. That's the bad man. That's the next row of sharp shark teeth to roll forward in this ugly mouth of theirs. He's highly respected. Daley, 62, has deep ties to Obama's political base, the youngest of 7 children of longtime Chicago Mayor Richard J. Daley. Oh, what a humanitarian he was. He is part of the most powerful political dynasty in Illinois who wants your guns because they're criminals. He was also a political mentor to Rahm Emanuel, along with the other two stooges, Barack Obama and, of course, Blagojevich, who worked with Daley in President Bill Clinton's administration and served as Obama's first chief of staff. Emanuel, 51, now is running to succeed Daley's brother, Richard M. Daley, as mayor of Chicago. Yeah, we'll put our boy in there, and then we'll move into the White House and continue with our people in all the chairs. It's never been better for us. As soon as we get the American people's guns, it's going to be even better. Right now, Chicago's suing a whole bunch of states, trying to get laws passed to take people's guns in places like Texas. It's so wonderful. There's no end to what we can do. Capone taught us well. There's nothing these schmucks won't take or go along with. It just gets better and better. I call America the happy hunting ground. During the 2008 presidential race, William Daley was an economic advisor to Obama and was co-chairman of his transition team after the election. Daley, whose typical responds to questions, didn't return messages, and it just goes on. Now, what did Blagojevich get in trouble for? List of impeachment charges against Blagojevich. The Illinois House articles of impeachment against Blagojevich accused him of, now see, in the past, this was all illegal. But now, I mean, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, Americans, if they saw a big family taking everything over and all the corruption and all the insiders, they would all be indicted and go to jail. Insider manipulation, influence peddling, racketeering, not anymore. Now there's Bloomberg articles about how great you are and how you're a veteran of business and respected and good. And it's just, oh. What was the first article of impeachment? Plotting to obtain a personal benefit in exchange for his appointment to fill the vacant seat in the United States Senate. What do you think the Daleys backed Obama? I mean, literally brought him up knee-high to a grasshopper out of the CIA stables. And Blagojevich and Emanuel and all these little gangsterlets, all these little gangster rugrats to be put in over by us so the old dons can sit there and pull their strings. Oh, it's so much fun because the American people don't have a common sense immune system. The more they get run over, the more they ask for it, the more they beg. The mafia brings in their TSA for dog training. Train them to let us put our hands down their pants. We'll make them pay tax money to be radiated. We'll lie to them and tell them we're not saving the images. And when they find out we're lying, big deal. We'll put the ACLU on a terror list. We'll put the, we'll put that Ron Paul guy on a terror list. I want the CIA and ATF and FBI's on that Ron Paul right now. And I want all the law enforcement magazines to say right now that if you see a Ron Paul sticker, you pull them over. And I want it right now that they got to get us out of the UN sticker. That thing's working good for us, bringing in the narcotics, setting up our thing worldwide. The DEA helping bring in the drugs, shutting down our competition. Let me tell you something. I want the ADL and Southern Poverty Law Center to put it on paper that anybody that stands up against our thing, La Cosa Nostra, is on the list. We're going to do it like Stalin and Hitler. We're going to get tough. We'll knock their heads. The cops fully work for us now. This country belongs to us, and we're taking it over. You got it? Good. And next we're going to get your guns. And we'll march all these dumb cops out there to die in shootouts with all of you while we sit back and laugh, because it's our thing. There's nothing you chumps won't take, nothing you chumps won't buy. And you know what? We're going to oblige you. Get ready. Get ready for Chicagoland worldwide. Okay, I will hold him to the end of the hour. Then I'll take calls in that first little segment. Then I promise I'll take calls while Keiser's on for everybody that's holding, because I want to get to everybody. But there's so much news to cover in the 21 minutes we've got left of this hour with Wayne Madsen. WayneMadsenReport.com. Our sites, of course, are Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. Between 85 and 99, Madsen held a series of jobs, first working for RCA as government consultant and contract for the National Security Agency. Later, he worked for the Navy's Naval Defense Automation Command. He actually hunted down submarines. As a civilian employee, after this, Madsen briefly established his own consulting firm, then worked for the National Bureau of Standards, and later for the State Department. In 1990, he joined the CSC, working in 1990 until 97, where he joined the Electronic Privacy Information Center. Great folks. As a senior fellow, in late January 2005, Madsen left Epic, again, he just has written for some of the biggest publications in the country, and we appreciate him joining us to talk about a host of issues. But let me, before we get into Operation Gladio Reprise, more false flag operations, everybody's really upset about the bird situation. Now they're finding a whole bunch more dead in Louisiana, not just in Beebe, Arkansas. The issue here is, as a bird hunter who shot plenty of dove and quail, you shoot them with a shotgun, the pellets don't pulverize their flesh and liquefy their organs. They say they're disease-free. This looks like some type of weird government test or something. Or what else could it be, Wayne Madsen, from your wide, well-read brain? What's your gut on this, Wayne?
Well, two things come to mind. We know that that particular part of Arkansas, very close by in Guy, Arkansas, has experienced a number of earthquakes, what they call an earthquake swarm. We also know that a lot of migratory birds use the low magnetic field of the earth to navigate, and obviously something may have interfered with that. What? I don't know. Is it natural occurring, or is it something that could be related to some military experiments? I think the jury is out. But one thing I don't buy is that these birds all fell out of the sky because somebody was setting off fireworks on New Year's Eve. I mean, the people that are parading out on local and national news look like they're right off of the set of Green Acres.
Yeah.
They really don't have much, fish and wildlife experts, they come to these conclusions after how many six-packs of Budweiser. The other thing is the drumfish, again, they are very susceptible to sound. They use sound, of course, so they're very susceptible to any kind of frequency. So I think there's obviously more to this story, and I'm not a scientist. I don't want to pretend that I am one, but I'm really not buying.
But you did deal with sonar in the Navy, and
yeah.
I mean, I'm a layman myself, but I know they don't just have the sound cannons. The military admits they've developed high-powered acoustic weapons that can literally shatter steel buildings. I mean, we're talking super-type weapons, or we know that when there have been earthquakes, it can even create bizarre fields that are even more powerful.
Exactly.
So there's no telling here. It's just people are really wanting to know. But going back to these buoys they set up all over the world, and the correlation of beached whales and other marine mammals, whenever the Navy and other navies have done these high-powered ping tests, we know that whales communicate over thousands of miles and now can't because there's so much acoustical pollution in the ocean. Is that an interesting line to follow as well?
Well, yes, and of course, and again with earthquakes, of course, they will affect sound transmission. They will cause sound transmission, low-frequency transmission in the ocean, and we've had a huge number of earthquakes reported just in the last year. A second one in Yorkshire, in England, yesterday, a week after one near the Scottish border. So these are not the areas that you expect to hear about this kind of activity. England, New Hampshire the other day, and some other very unusual areas. So is it natural? Is it man-made? I think that's the question that needs to be answered right now.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the earthquake issue, because that's where I was going next. Then we'll shift gears into the Gladio situation. Is the new Madrid fault earthquake zone coming to life. The American Dream blog wrote this up and links to a whole bunch of mainstream news articles that they are having all sorts of earthquakes all over the Midwest and onto the East Coast. And, of course, for those that don't know, just since the colonies have been colonized, just in the last 300 years, the Mississippi River has, changed course twice that I know of, in some cases by many miles, after huge mega earthquakes. Imagine what a big earthquake would do to the Mississippi if that fault line becomes active again. I mean, where I live in Austin has 3 extinct, some argue dormant, volcanoes. I mean, this country is covered, and we know the big super caldera that is Yellowstone has become very active again. So certainly I think your point about the earthquakes, they've measured more than 500 earthquakes, some as high as 3.8 magnitude in places like Indiana, and it all seems to be building. So that would add more weight to what you're saying.
Right, and the EU Commission actually came out with a statement last week saying that 2010 was a record year for quakes, and the Austrian government said that they had 50 registered in Austria, 10 in Tyrol province itself, and that was a record too. So we have European governments and institutions talking about this is not normal. The USGS, on the other hand, the U.S. Geological Survey, is always saying, oh, this is quite normal, when in fact it is not normal, and we have the EU and Austria backing up the fact that it's just not normal.
Sure, and investigators, again, are puzzled in Louisiana over bird deaths as well. That's up on Infowars.com from theadvocate.com. Okay, Wayne, in the time we've got left, I really pay attention to everything you say, but I really pay attention when you start talking about Gladio, and we've got your report up at prisonplanet.com. Gladio reprise, more false flag operations. Why don't you briefly fill folks in on Gladio? And then that's what I thought, seeing these latest events, that it mirrors what we saw with Gladio in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, always rearing its head during political tumult.
Well, Gladio was a CIA operation which actually used a lot of the assets of the Gehlen organization. Now, Reinhard Gehlen was a Gestapo officer in Hitler's secret police. He was used by the CIA after World War II to help set up what were known as stay-behind networks. In the event of a Soviet invasion of Europe, there would be these units, these cells that would have access to buried or hidden away caches of weapons and ammunition to do guerrilla attacks on Soviet occupying forces. These not only existed in NATO countries, but also, more interestingly, in neutral countries like Switzerland, Austria, Finland, and a few others, Spain, before it joined NATO, and a few others. So what happened in the 70s and 80s was we saw, with the rise of leftist activists in Europe, there were false flag attacks done by Gladio units that had access to these weapons that were then blamed on the Red Brigades of Italy, the Red Army faction in Germany. They kidnapped and assassinated former Italian Prime Minister Aldo Moro. That was blamed on the left, when in fact it looks like that was carried out by these Gladio units. Also, there was a bombing of a train station in Bologna, Italy, that was later found to be carried out by the Gladio units. So these, of course, were all blamed on the leftists. Now what we're seeing is, in Europe, we see that the boogeyman of the Islamist jihadis is kind of fading, although we see roundups. But we've heard the Italian police commander say these recent bombings at embassies, or attempted bombings at embassies in Rome, and similar bombings in Athens of embassies, are being carried out by a network of anarchists throughout Europe. Well, that sounds amazingly like the charges we heard from Denmark when they rounded up 5 people they claim were trying to blow up a newspaper office in Copenhagen, that this was a pan-European network. I think with the impending general strikes and street demonstrations in Europe coming up this year, on the austerity programs, the budget cuts, the pension cuts. We're seeing the bankers and the oligarchs in Europe trying to now link the left movement, the workers and students movement, to the jihadists, and we're going to see a full court press to try to link those two organizations and go after people who are out in the streets rightfully and justifiably protesting what the bankers have done to these various economies.
Very well said. I mean, it's classic, and we see Gladio raising its ugly head, really based on the NATO option. Gladio, as you mentioned, got its name because that was the one area that went public. The head of Italian intelligence went public. Later, the Italian president went public. That the CIA and NATO were in there blowing up school buses, trains, you name it. They love killing kids, but then blame it on whoever their political enemies were who were becoming politically popular. Well, now you got all these people mad at the big banks, so suddenly there's all these bombs going off, and the state gets to then pose as the savior and say, look, those that are against the banks raping you, they're terrorists. I mean, it's very simple psychology. How do we respond to the tried and trusted false flag attack that the Russians engage in, the Chinese, the British, Israel, the U.S.? I mean, this is a tool used by governments. It's been leaked and declassified literally hundreds of times. Some of the public still says governments would never do that. Yes, they'd inject foster children with syphilis. Yes, they'd radiate foster children. But they wouldn't do that. No, these are good people in government. I mean, what do you do? Just attack the lie of terror? Okay, let's say the terror is real. Don't take my rights. I'll take my chances. I mean, is that the answer? Because it's this nanny state now of everything must be surveilled by our great protectors, but we have a better chance of dying from a bee sting every year than dying from terrorists. I mean, how do we respond, A, to things like stage terror, Gladio, and B, what does it signify that they're really heating this up in Europe, and now we're seeing these kind of abortive, patsy failure operations here in the U.S.?
Well, I think it takes critical thinking. There's really not a whole lot of ways to avoid the 24/7 news channels, but when they report something like this incident in Denmark where rounding up these guys, one guy was actually innocent. He was released because all he did was rent an apartment to some of these other guys. But when you see a guy like the Danish head of police intelligence getting on there, and he turns out he's nothing more, Jakob Scharf is nothing more than a shill for the Israelis, it takes critical thinking. And you know, I think that's people just have to stop believing what they hear on CNN and Fox News and MSNBC, and unfortunately the BBC and others are falling into this as well. Just say it's baloney, but then try to find out why we're putting out this false information.
Well, that's the other issue. I mean, we learned in the Madrid bombings 6-7 years ago, it came out in their news that intelligence agencies were involved. It came out in the 7/7 event. I mean, it just always comes out, but that's after the news cycle is over. It's a footnote that it's the intelligence agencies running it, and they may burn some drug addict, patsy occasionally, but that's it.
And when people start hearing about anarchists being responsible for terrorist attacks in Europe and maybe here, remember, there were police caught changing in and out of the black garb that anarchists wear at the B20 and G8 conferences. They were the ones who were throwing the bricks through the Starbucks.
They've been caught in Denver, Canada. They've been caught in Toronto. They've been caught in Greece. I mean, they get caught everywhere.
This is their MO. And also, when you hear of a new group claiming responsibility, as we heard in Italy, that no one's ever heard of before, just think it's another fakery organization, just like this quote-unquote Al-Qaeda and all of its McDonald's-like franchises that have now opened up around the world, North Africa, Arabian Peninsula.
You got Anwar al-Awlaki, you've got you've got Gaddafi. All of these guys are admitted government spooks.
Absolutely, and we heard that this Danish police intelligence guy, Scharf, basically trying to link what happened in Denmark to David Headley, who was accused of being behind the Mumbai attacks, and now it turns out Headley was working for the Drug Enforcement Administration and the CIA.
And by the way, the BBC is reporting that the police told everybody to evacuate and get away from the church that got bombed in Egypt. We're not saying there aren't real Muslim terrorists, but they're very rare. It's like finding a leprechaun, you know, in your backyard. I mean, absolutely, some of these people do exist, but in every case we see, it's always intelligence with its hands all over it. Same thing in Egypt, Wayne.
Absolutely, and Egypt is another example, and there'll be, unfortunately, many more in the Middle East, Europe, and
hold on, this is too important. We got to do 5 more minutes, and I promise I'll get to your calls too. Stay there. This is important. Gladio reprise, more false flag operations, and the fact that, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a lot less scared of Muslims that are xenophobic and want to control their country and want people out. I know Christians have gotten along by and large with Muslims, so have Jews, except for during the Crusades and then in some of the more modern times. On average, that's an oversimplification, Wayne. But I know that, again, it's out in the open. In fact, I need to pull the mainstream news article up. I'll do a search while you're talking. That the police in Egypt got everybody back, said get away from this Christian church before it got bombed. And it's just always the same. They always know. They always give warnings to insiders. Oklahoma City, first World Trade Center attack, second World Trade Center attack on 9/11. And we see as the whole world politically gets angry, the state's fingerprints all over these events. And now these internal warnings getting leaked. And even USA Today's hyping it that this year we're going to see massive truck bombs and terrorists. And the head of the Justice Department says he loses sleep at night with domestic groups. Why the militias are going to link up with Adam Gadon and Alaki. And we've just got to go after the American people because they're now with the Muslim extremists.
Well, one important thing is, one measuring stick I use, anytime you see Wolf Blitzer hyping a story like he did on the bombing in the church in Alexandria, Egypt, that usually tells me, because I know who he really works for, that tells me what's behind a lot of this. That was a remotely controlled car bomb that went off in Alexandria, and on Al Jazeera they had a Middle Eastern journalist saying, this is new for Egypt. They haven't had a history of this, not like they have in Lebanon. But remotely controlled car bombs are a telltale sign of particular intelligence agencies, and I would point out that what we saw in Egypt has now exacerbated tensions between the 10% Coptic Christian community and the 90% Muslim community in a country. They've had problems in the past, but now it's really reached a crescendo. So who benefits by this strife in Egypt? The Egyptians are saying that it is foreigners responsible, but they have not said Al-Qaeda. They haven't really pinpointed it, but they've said foreigners. That doesn't say it was necessarily jihadists who
and
were
notice,
responsible.
exactly, and notice, just like with 9/11, we were shown old videos of Palestinians celebrating something that was later confirmed to have been staged. Magically, there's video of a rent mob, celebrating the attack on the church right on time. This has all the makings of some type of Hollywood scripted situation.
Absolutely. So I think we're going to see. We've also had bombings of churches in Baghdad as well. I think it's the same type of scenario being played out there to exacerbate tensions. We already have them between the Shias and Sunnis in Iraq, and now we have them with the Iraqi.
Well, I've had Ray McGovern, the former top briefer to Ronald Reagan and George Bush Sr., talk about how our government blew up the Golden Mosque in Iraq to get the Shiites and Sunnis killing each other. I mean, they've been caught. British MI6, as you know, Special Air Services arm, got caught dressed up like Sunnis running around shooting and killing Shiites.
Same thing in Pakistan. We've seen the same thing play out there, where U.S. intelligence has been behind some of the attacks in that country as well. So this is pretty standard operating procedure these days.
So it signifies things are really heating up, that suddenly this stuff's popping up everywhere?
Absolutely.
All right, Wayne Madsen, I guess it's pointing towards Iran, possibly, an attack there?
It could be. We never know when that's going to come.
I hear you. I hear you. Wayne, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us. Well, we were unable to make a connection to Max Keiser over in Europe last Friday, but we've got him today for the next 52 minutes. I promise for all the callers that are holding, we'll go to your calls early in the hour, then continue discussions into the end of the hour. Who knows, maybe even go into overdrive today with Max Keiser. Always great to have him on. We've got so many things to talk about. We've got William M. Daley, former head of the Commerce Department under Clinton, with the mysterious death of Ron Brown, now to go in and head up the White House operations for Obama. Talk about influence peddling. And we've got Obama announcing that he's going to use executive authority to do whatever he wants in the country, so expanding things that Bush did. There's a lot of other important news we're going to be covering. The incredible explosion of silver and gold. Get Max Keiser's view of what's headed into the new year. We've got all these other announcements that are coming out showing more and more very serious storm clouds on the horizon. A lot of amazing police state developments that I haven't gotten to. Court OK searches of cell phones without warrant. And now the TSA is grabbing people's phones, downloading stuff off of them, their computers without a warrant. They're copying people's credit cards. But now the police are saying they can just do this to citizens. I mean, this is insane. I mean, your cell phone's your little computer, your little personal computer. And so they're saying that when the police arrest you and you're taken into custody, they don't even need a warrant for that. I mean, this is really crazy. I mean, folks, this is bona fide. They're getting rid of the bedrock of the Bill of Rights. First, they told you it was for Al-Qaeda down the road, and now they say, no, it's for you, the American people. And an iron curtain of tyranny is ascending around the world. I want to get into all of the mysterious, what our last guest, Wayne Madsen, was saying is clearly inside job terror attacks in Europe and the Middle East, and all the evidence is there. But first off, Max, what do you think about the bird mystery? Microwaves, fireworks, secret weapons. What liquefies the innards of 5,000 birds, Max Keiser?
Well, why ask about these birds right off the bat, man? I mean, you know, there's a lot happening in the banking sector. You know, the birds, I don't
Are the birds for the birds? Are the birds?
Yeah, the bees are all dying off. Remember a couple of years ago, the bees started dying. There's another huge die-off of bees. Bees, without bees, there's no agriculture, there's no food, and then you have to rely on people like Monsanto. Birds are dying, the fish are dying. It's industrialization gone crazy. It's pollution. It's killing the natural habitat, and it's causing premature human extinction. That's been the trend. So, yeah, the natural world can only take so much pollution, and then it starts to die off, despite what some new members of Congress might feel is written in some ancient text. If you put a certain amount of garbage into the planet's ecosystem, you will kill the ecosystem.
Well, Max, I agree with you on that, but we're told put a tax on what plants breathe, and in the history of this planet, they know that carbon dioxide has been many, many, many times higher than it is now. Why do they focus on paying taxes to Al Gore and the UN instead of open-air genetic engineering, the German government studies connected to BT corn killing the bees, the electromagnetic studies out of Europe and even the U.S. and Canada, that the electromagnetics are killing trees and grass nearby, retarding their growth. I mean, my problem is government isn't focused on anything that's actually causing problems. They just want to tax what I exhale.
Yeah, the response to this problem, you've got two responses: taxes and carbon trading in the area of carbon emissions. Now, the problem with taxes, as you point out, is if it's going to be controlled by the same corrupt government, then we have no expectation that they would do any better job at collecting any kind of tax in any reasonable way related to anything. As far as carbon trading goes, well, that goes to Wall Street, and Wall Street is going to use it as a scam to pocket themselves billions of dollars and destroy that market as well, just like they destroyed every other market, and just like they're destroying what's coming on with Facebook. I don't know if you saw the news with Facebook, but they just did a deal with Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs now gets to buy $450 million worth of Facebook, totally bypassing the SEC rules and regulations. They're just breaking the law openly. The SEC has said we got to take a closer look at this. People who follow Wall Street tell you this is completely illegal what they're doing. They're just allowing folks to cash in on Facebook without giving the public a chance to cash in on Facebook, even though it's the public that has made Facebook the $50 billion company it is by uploading all of their photos and chats and all of the messages that they upload to Facebook. Well, that's worth $50 billion to Goldman Sachs clients. How much is going to go to the people who actually created the value of Facebook? The public, they get absolutely nothing, and it's completely illegal. And don't forget also that Facebook uses Zynga, which is a virtual currency, and Zynga is a new way to load people up with another huge wave of debt. So they're going into a whole new virtual world of debt. Just like Monsanto uses seeds to create agricultural debt, Wall Street uses debt to create debt. Now you've got Facebook who's going to use Farmville and Zynga and virtual currencies to create virtual debt.
Exactly. Seeds were always a ever-replicating renewable resource, but now Monsanto and two other big giants, as part of an admitted strategic takeover program, make them agents of death that take over and infect the rest of the DNA of the planet, of the biosphere, not just mutilating, but irrevocably damaging, and then you've got to buy from them every year. It doesn't continue the life cycle. This is blasphemy according to all laws of nature or any religion. But where are the Christians? The Pope is out now promoting GMO. It's of the Lord. I mean, this is so devilish, what we see.
It is completely devilish. The Monsanto, what they call terminator seeds, are seeds that don't reseed. They don't populate. They don't, dandelions would bloom without seeds that would scatter to create more dandelions. But in this case, we're talking about agricultural products or food. So wheat and other foodstuffs would not bear seeds to regenerate themselves. All that becomes an intellectual property of a company like Monsanto. And when other genetically modified patented seeds blew into the field of a guy who was not growing Monsanto seeds, Monsanto sued him for intellectual property violation because the wind blew their product into his farm without him even knowing about it. So this is what they're trying to control the agriculture, the same way the Fed tries to control the money supply with debt. Monsanto's trying to control the food with terminator seeds and intellectual property seeds. And Facebook now wants to control the cyberspace with virtual debt and Zynga-based virtual currency.
Well, I have an analogy. I have an analogy, Max, because it is a genetic issue. Monsanto, which literally owns the courts, has their former heads as the head of the EPA, the head of the FDA. They've got all the bases covered. Same thing in Europe. They get caught smuggling seeds in, and other companies do, into countries as literal military outposts. And it's the equivalent of this. They come and plant GMO canola right next to your field, or GMO soybeans, whatever the case is, there have been many cases of this, or GMO corn. It blows into your field. They trespass and have planes drop Roundup bombs on it. It kills an area. Then they fly over and see that a few plants are alive. Those were the few that were Monsanto from seeds getting in, or part of their genetics, and then they come sue you admitting that they infected you. That'd be like if a man, a next-door neighbor, moved in, stalked your wife, raped her, and then when she got pregnant, he comes and demands the baby, saying it's his, instead of going to jail. That's what Monsanto does.
Right, and they're doing it on an intercontinental basis. They've totally destroyed large parts of India's agricultural industry. This is why thousands of Indian farmers have committed suicide, because they are sold Monsanto seeds at the point of a gun, and then when they can't afford to upgrade because the seeds don't reproduce, and they are heavily in debt because they have to go in debt to keep buying the seeds. And by the way, the fertilizer, the genetically modified fertilizer, only works with genetically modified seeds. So they get you have to buy the GM fertilizer, the GM seeds, and of course they go deeper into debt, and thousands of them are killing themselves. And this is part of the Monsanto program, is that they're death merchants. And they're far more, if you do, I'll do a little experiment. You can do an experiment right now. The Monsanto lawyers are deeply embedded in the Internet. Anyone can try this. If you write a blog about Monsanto, they are right on you quickly. They are much more litigious than Exxon or the energy companies. They are really, in my opinion, of all the companies I've tracked over the years, they are the absolute worst.
Well, finishing up with Monsanto and these other big GMO companies, if you go back to Henry Kissinger's State Department Memorandum 200, Kissinger said, we'll use food as a weapon. We'll take over the third world. And, I mean, it's an amazing business model coming out of this coterie of companies. And I guess that's just the way it is. We've just got to submit to it and worship them, and it's wonderful. Well,
it's dead. And, of course, they go in there with this idea that they're saving farmers and they're making food available, and they get them hooked on these intellectual property-protected seed that they administer like a central bank. It's a currency. It's an agricultural currency, but it's all debt-based. And so you have agricultural debt, you have monetary debt from the central banks, which you cover all the time. You know this very well. Then you have this new virtual debt, which is coming via Facebook, which is now in bed with Goldman Sachs, who is financed with some Russian oligarch people, and they're putting together now a multi-billion-dollar, 600 million user debt farm, a virtual debt farm.
And you predicted that it would be turned into a giant casino gulag. We'll be right back with Max Keiser with his outlook for this year. Stay with us. We're going to take your phone calls right now on any subject you want, but I know it was earlier for calls for witnesses about the dead and dying wildlife. And this is a big deal. And then we're going to hold Max Keiser, who's going to ride shotgun with us, at least 30 minutes into the next hour of Super Overdrive. It's actually just Overdrive. I guess we went into a fifth hour, it'd be Super Overdrive. Rarely do that. Of course, we did the 27-hour broadcast last year. I think I'll do one of those again this year, maybe two. That was fun. But Max Keiser is our guest for at least another hour. We will continue with your phone calls on a bunch of news and a key video I'm going to play in the last 30 minutes that's extremely powerful. But I do want to go ahead and get to your calls. And so without further ado, let's talk to Lucretia in Oregon. Thank you for holding. Welcome.
Hey, Alex. Who am I? I'm an info warrior girl.
Well done.
I finally got you on the local radio station, KMED here, after 2 years of working hard on the guy that owns the station. So
that is awesome. You know, I was talking to Lisa Lyon, the producer of Coast to Coast AM, and she heard me on that station. That's where, up in her neck of the woods, and she likes the station. She listens to it. We're on several there in Oregon. Tell folks again the call letters and the frequency of the fine station.
KMED 1440, and sadly you're on at night, so he broadcasts you later, 6 to 9 p.m.
Well, it's not sad. We're glad to be on weekdays. Let me tell you.
And you're on live on Sunday, so that's awesome. But yeah, I gave him over 100 of the Obama deceptions to give out.
How is the station liking it? Because we're on so many new AM and FMs, getting 2 or 3 a week that are new, and we're talking about all these hardcore issues, and the stations are loving it. I mean, but again, 10 years ago, it was like I was a 14-headed, goblin. But now people can see what we're covering is reality.
Absolutely. I can see the difference in the callers. They're totally waking up. It's awesome. So, yeah, I'm totally stoked about that. But I wanted to, you asked about the birds, and so I wanted to cover the 4 main points. One is to consider having Loren Murray on. She talks about the dramatic increase in earthquakes since HARP was put in. She also, being a whistleblower from Lawrence Livermore, knows about Gordon MacDonald, who, as you recall, was Lyndon B. Johnson's scientific advisor when Ben Livingston was doing all the monsoons. And she says he's a geophysicist that was a part of the technology to set off earthquakes and volcanoes. But
I have Secretary of Defense Cohen in 97. In fact, I've got the quote here in my stack. I'll pull it out if I can find it. I've covered it on Coast to Coast. This is real, and earthquakes are increasing, and they're behaving like they haven't behaved in the several hundred years that the scientists, the seismologists, the volcanologists, and others have been studying it. And I got Secretary of Defense Cohen in Army Times saying that our government and other governments have developed tectonic earthquake weapons. And just like they laughed at us years ago about weather modification, now it's all over the news, and they're not just spraying stuff out of airplanes. They've got these big antenna farms doing it from the U.S. to the Middle East. It's crazy. Let me get Max Keiser's take on that.
Well, what about the earthquakes that the industry is putting together on purpose? I'm referring to shale fracking, where they're going in and they're fracking the crust of the earth to get a little natural gas. I'm sure that disturbs the earth crust.
And, of course, it's a politically correct term. They don't call it cracking. They call it fracking. I mean, what a joke.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is just industry fracking and cracking the earth's crust to get a little extra cubic feet of gas to power this industrial monstrosity for a few more months. Just leave the earth's crust alone. You know, stop fracking.
Well, we saw that with the Deepwater Horizon, a record deep well, and I was studying in many areas of the Gulf of Mexico, as deep as they were going is how thick the crust is. They're going into the mantle.
Yeah, well, that's going to disturb the way. You know, that's the point. If you keep, you know how many drill bits there are in the Gulf of Mexico? I was amazed during the BP crisis. There are thousands of these things going in there and screwing around.
Yeah, I think there's 15,000 plus in the Gulf. I mean, if you go out there fishing now, when I was a kid, you go out fishing, you hardly saw rigs. It's now just rigs everywhere. And when it's nighttime, you see even more because now the lights stand out. They're just all over the place. And you think about the butterfly effect or the lensing effect, the megaphone effect. What's the proper term?
Amplification.
Yes, the amplification effect. There you go. Thank you, Max. Of all of this, it's probably untold what it's doing. Lucretia?
Well, that's what I was saying at the beginning of the show. This is a year when Mother Nature finally says, go to hell.
How do we know the globalists aren't launching a lot of these weather attacks themselves and then saying, oh, look at the weather, let us have our carbon taxes, buy Al Gore and other beachfront property because the water's rising?
Well, because you have to have some sensitivity as an earthbound human being to what's happening with Mother Earth. You just listen to your own body and your own soul cry as you watch Earth crumble because it's being fracked to death and polluted to death.
Well, I'll say this.
I don't doubt that the global. Who are the globalists? They're corporations. We're talking about the same thing. They're just destroying the resources to get the last penny of resource out because they're crazy. They're suicidal. You know who wrote the best book on this is Dr. Seuss. He wrote a book called The Lorax.
Yeah, and the last Lorax gets cut down, yeah.
Yeah, read Dr. Seuss's the Lorax, and you understand what the current situation is. If you can't understand a Dr. Seuss book, then heaven help you.
Dr. Al-Qaeda Seuss? He criticizes the government. I don't like him. Lucretia, great job. Thanks for helping us get on that station. That's how we're getting on all these great stations. And the stations are having big success with it and reaching more people, and we love it. Rashid in New York, thanks for holding for eons. You're on the air with the one, the only, Max Keiser.
How you doing, Alex? First-time caller. How you doing, Max?
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to know what you actually think about the Carlyle Group purchasing a major supplement company called MBTY for $3.2 billion.
Well, I've got a comment. That's an inside operation. They know that supplements, they know that agriculture, metals, commodities, energy is going to be the future as paper currencies and other forms of paper are exposed as being fraud-ridden instruments. But also, this is all about inside baseball. Just like the Obama crime syndicate has given over 500 waivers to select campaign contributors, companies, McDonald's and others, where they don't have to get insurance for their employees. Or if you gave the Democrats, you get to keep your Chevy dealership. This is big city Chicago mafia merged with the Fuhrer precept unitary executive of Bushy. what a monster amalgamation that is. And so you're going to only have select insiders who are allowed in the future under Codex Alimentarius, that, by the way, is in the House and Senate bill. The Food Safety Act admits they selectively get to shut down who they want. That's the essence of insider baseball. Comments on that, on what Rashid's asking there, Max?
Well, we're talking about a food supplement company, and it's part and parcel with this idea of unnatural synthetic food as replacing natural food. You know, as you talk about on your show all the time, that they're cracking down on people growing their own food. People are not allowed to, the price of natural organic food is beyond the reach of most people. So a company like this that produces food supplements, the price is going to continue to go up as people are going to be shut out from access to wholesome, whole food. So this is part of that prison mentality. You know, it's basically prison gruel, and this is what they're going to be serving the poor prisoners in the casino gulag.
Yeah, and you're talking about a general spectrum. I don't know about Carlyle, very wicked company, buying the company you mentioned. I've never heard of it. They may just be angel cakes, and so they got bought because they have a good product. I don't know. I'm just generally looking at who financed the food safety bill. It has nothing to do with food safety and is Codex Alimentarius. And for years, we'd fight this. We'd have the official UN documents, Europe trying to pass it, basically where you can't get raw vitamins over the counter. You've got to get them all adulterated and patented and reformulated by Big Pharma. And it's Big Pharma, big genetic engineering, mixed with the military-industrial complex and the big banks, and it's all just a predatory, weaponized, cancerous takeover paradigm. Rashid, anything else from New York?
Just a prediction for 2011. A lot of the colleges is probably going to close down in a sense. They're going to close their doors because I guess a lot of people are realizing that there are no jobs here and degrees are basically worthless.
Well, I mean, unless it's something like being a doctor or an engineer where you've really got to have the technicals, I feel so sorry for folks that go and get, philosophy degrees and things. I mean, I don't know. I know so many engineers that are literally working at Walmart now, but then 17-year-old kids that actually know how to get stuff done on the internet, they're getting paid a lot of money. I mean, it just shows that with the acceleration of knowledge, what colleges are teaching on average is 5-10 years old. I mean, when I went and took RTF, they were literally were teaching me nothing. It was like 50-year-old baloney about the media system. I just went out and found a crack in the media and jammed myself into it, and here we are. Look, shoe leather, ladies and gentlemen, and brains and action and taking action. That's how you get things done. I appreciate your call, Rashid. And yes, the big education bubble, we've been talking about that for years. Max Keiser, your take on that?
Well, yeah, I think it's an interesting reflection of what's going on in the rest of the economy, because education is becoming a have-nots and have-yachts. So, the price of an Ivy League education is going up, and of course the people who can afford to go to those schools are financed the children of the bankers on Wall Street.
And that's really, and Max, as you know, that's really only about getting in with the in crowd, so that even if you're not from the elite family, maybe you can be a secretary making $1 million a year, and they do on Wall Street, because you dated the captain of the football team at Harvard or Yale. I mean, it's all about being part of the white shoe boys.
Well, and they teach you, in economics, they teach you the neoliberal school of economics, the Chicago school, the Obama, he's a graduate of that school of economics, the Milton Friedman school. And this school, the Ben Bernanke is also a graduate of this school. It teaches you to look at the economy and only see deflation, and your response is always to pump more money, which of course makes the asset prices of the people who weathered your education by endowing the colleges that you went to in the Ivy League rich, because their asset prices go up. But the people who are now deprived of an education are getting bankrupted because the food and energy that they have to spend 20 or 30 or 40% of their after-tax income on to survive is going up along with those asset prices, so they're bankrupted. So it's an education system that bankrupts the lower classes and enriches the higher classes by making the cost of an Ivy League school that much higher, and by making the access to all education totally indebted and privatized like the prison industry.
And then that creates a race to the bottom, and they're already prepositioning for that in armored government and corporate redoubts where the rest of us are basically just hunted down by their hunter-killer drones. That's not the Terminator movie. That's their actual plan with a drone-operated Skynet. I mean, these people are completely out of control.
Here's the secret to life. Get yourself a copy of Webster's New College Dictionary. Costs about $6. And read the entire thing cover to cover. It might take you 2 years, but read the entire dictionary. That way, you give yourself an education, and you are ready to strike out on your own into the big
And by the way,
world.
that's all they did with the Founding Fathers. Almost all of them were trained till about 14 at home, and they read the Encyclopedia and Black's Law and other dictionaries, and they could speak 5-6 languages, and were all incredible inventors, and had IQs of probably around 180. So he's absolutely right. That's how you do it. We'll be right back. All right, I'm going to continue in this segment into the next with Max Keiser and calls. Then I want to get into all the other issues with Max, some of the just incredible police state developments, like the court's federal court ruling, police don't need a warrant to take your cell phone and download everything off of it. I mean, this is happening. And all these smart cameras to go and, quote, all the businesses to make sure you're not upset or angry, right out of THX 1138. That's in the New York Times telling you how great it is. This is insane. Now more than ever, we've got to speak out and say no and support alternative media and people that tell the truth. I've done almost 3 hours now. We're doing the 4th hour coming up with Max Keiser and your calls and a lot of news. And I haven't plugged prisonplanet.tv. 15 cents a day, $5.95 a month. For a few more weeks, we're going to have the New Year's special that we run in December into New Year's, where you can get 5+ months free at prisonplanet.tv right now. A higher quality audio commercial-free podcast, the video cast, the video simulcast of the radio show, several more dimensions of information. prisonplanet.tv, and it is your memberships that make it possible. Every subject under the sun, every guest you can imagine, all there. Special interviews where I've got crews flying all over the country. We've got 2 new interviews going up this week, several the next week, several more. It's just endless. I'm going to start just dumping whole archives of never-before-seen stuff, new stuff, all to prisonplanet.tv. We're upping our operation. Soon I'm starting a daily TV show, prisonplanet.tv, that'll be developed into a weekly for television. prisonplanet.tv, 15 cents a day, 15 cents a day, prisonplanet.tv, and the special's almost up. If you want to get 5+ months free, you sign up for a year, you pay for 6.7 months, you get 5.3 months free. That's what the special comes out to, prisonplanet.tv. And spread the word about the free podcast, the free iPhone app. That's how we're reaching more people. It's good for you to talk yourself blue in the face to neighbors or give them copies of films that are, covering these issues like Endgame, Invisible Empire, Fall of the Republic, Obama Deception, that shatter the left-right paradigm. But it's even more important to get them to listen to the show. So then they'll hear Max Keiser's and Ron Paul's and Jesse Ventura's and Stefan Molyneux's and, all these different ideas and Alan Watt. The website, of course, for Max Keiser is maxkeiser.com. That's maxkeiser.com, and he has a show on RT, BBC, Press TV, a Saturday morning radio show on Genesis, gcnlive.com. I mean, it's just amazing the output he's doing. And as we go to the 4th hour, I want to finish up with calls and then get into other issues and things that are on your radar and where you see silver going and where you see the economy going. But Max, specifically, more about the alternative media. The system's coming in now openly saying they want to censor it, and even mainstream news like CTV in Canada is reporting this is a corporate takeover of the web. They're getting scared.
Yeah, well, did you see that news that came out, I guess, the last couple of months, that actually they're going to open up the spectrum to community radio stations in the U.S. They're going to allow communities now to start up local radio stations.
Yeah, they always say that, though, and then it's local communism promotion stuff.
Well, I mean, it started out because they're in crisis in various communities. There was no way to inform people because all the local stations were national stations and they had no local way to reach out to people. So they passed, so there's some very aggressive, radio-friendly people who got this passed, and they're going to start giving out local radio licenses.
Yeah, I saw that. It needs to be like Access TV, though, on the radio, and not be some kind of fake co-op where everybody's wearing red stars on their shirts. And that means as these licenses go out, good people need to get the license at the inception of this and make sure it's a real liberty message. Do you agree, Max Keiser?
That's right. Look it up now and get in line now so you can grab the spectrum and you can all launch a free local radio stations. This is the greatest thing to happen in
Or as long as you don't interfere with anybody. Just fire up a powerful pirate transmitter and say, New World Order, you want it, you got it. That's Real Renegade. We'll be right back in 60 seconds with the Keiser. Let's go to the calls right now. We got a lot more on the plate that Keiser's going to cover here. Thomas in Louisiana, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going? First, I want to give you a big shout-out and a thanks for everything that you do. I was just calling because I'm a swim coach, and I work with little kids every day, and I just want to say that it's terrible seeing what some of these parents are doing with their little kids, you know, as far as nutrition goes and as far as the vaccines and the flu shots. I've seen little kids come in, you know, all excited and running around and happy, and then they go get their vaccines for school and jacked up with these flu shots, and they come in, and literally it's like they're a zombie. They're
yeah, mission complete. Read the insert. Total brain damage. The parents love it.
They're not responding. They're walking around slow. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? And these are like 6, 7-year-old kids. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? And they're just slow. And the parents are like, oh, they're tired today. And it's like, no, man, you can't do that. Well, I know. Listen, I've known neighbor kids that were happy and everything, and they got all the flu shots last year, and they're just like, hello, were you there? And they ain't ever coming back. Mommy and Daddy have got a little zombie now, and Mommy and Daddy like that, though. They take their kid up like the Babylonians and the Canaanites did and throw their kids into fiery pits to Baal or Moloch. No, now we throw them into fiery brain damage pits, and the parents are just like, oh, the sacrament, oh. I'm sorry, go ahead. They don't, yeah, no, I'm sorry. They just don't even understand. They're not educated. And so the thing is, our little girl, she comes home with a sheet, and it says, you know, she had to have a list of 5 vaccines because she doesn't have record of them because we never got her vaccinated in order to go. And listen, in order to go back to school. So we're like 5 vaccines a girl.
By the way, it's not a law. It's all color of law. There's a waiver for that.
Listen. So I say, so we called up the principal. We're like, you know, what's this about the vaccines? We read the law. We don't have to do that. And they said, oh, yeah, we know that. We just give it because we want the kids to be vaccinated. So
I know. It's so moral. And all the schools that got caught last year, we gave it even though the parents said no. Oopsie, we know best. You're like, well, here's all the Rockefeller Foundation documents, how they're putting sterilants and brain-damaging chemicals by design. Oh, shut up. I'm with the government. Inject. Kids are having convulsions. You're like, yeah. In fact, we have that video. Cue up the video for kids where the lady laughs and goes, and they inject the kid. Well, it's so again, there's the pure evil where lying is good for your own good. What's your take on that, Max Keiser?
Well, I got 2 points. Number one, the kids should sue the parents for pharmacological abuse. They can make out like bandits. These kids should sue their parents. There's a lot of lawyers in America that will take on these cases, and they should go out and solicit these cases. They should advertise on kid shows, Saturday morning cartoons, to sue your parents for pharmacological abuse. Number 2, I think a big growth industry in the next couple of years is going to be wrongful birth insurance. People are going to sue their parents for having allowed them to be born in a world where people are jabbing them with flu shots, and that the wrongful birth insurance for something like $5 or $10 a month is something that parents are going to be buying to protect themselves against their children suing them for wrongful birth.
And by the way, Max isn't joking about this. I mean, he's predicted so much that's come true. But going back to Thomas, it's your job to hand out to all the parents the actual drug insert and explain to them that even the British Medical Journal admits that flu shot doubled their chances of getting regular flu for the rest of their life. It's destroying their immune systems, and the government is not their friend. Stop being gullible slugs. But there's your criminality right there, that the school would lie about this. Thomas, we got 20 seconds left. You got another question for Keiser you can answer after the break?
No, just real quick. I just wanted to say I was a step ahead. I already got emailed out to parents and stuff like that. Good. And also on the local broadcast channels here, they've been playing Endgame on TV on Sundays. They've been playing it all day long. They've been playing the 9/11 Truth. This is on the public access channel. So
well done. We'll be right back. Another offensive.
Sid, I'm Governor Mark Parkinson, and I think I can help. Kids run a higher risk of getting the H1N1 flu and developing serious complications. That's why the H1N1 vaccination is the best way to keep you and your community safe and healthy. You can learn more at flu.gov.
Thanks, Governor. See you later, scientists.
Now, that's one of the ads, but we have the actual TV piece where they're like, you know, the teacher's like, it might hurt a little, but it'll help a lot. And it shows the older kids, they induct the little kid, and then he gets to be cool because he takes a shot. I used to have dreams and think a lot. Now I'm going to have an autoimmune response. I'm going to lose a few million brain cells and be toxic. And you'll get cancer. It's going to be fun. But see, they don't really tell the kid that. It's a chemical weapon. Alex has got all the UN documents posted at Infowars.com. Get ready to be brain damaged, kid, and have your IQ reduced and your sperm count drop when you become fertile. It's part of the official UN eugenics program. No. It's like, oh, Sonny, get your shot. Okay, isn't that sweet? It's so nice. It's so loving. Max Keiser, what do you think of that?
Remember, you're never too young to sue your parents.
You know, we sit here and laugh at this stuff, folks, but, I mean, I've pulled it up on air. You can just, in fact, we'll do it live on air for everybody right now. Just type in Rockefeller Foundation developed sterilants and vaccines, Infowars.com, and then we've got like a 10-part series, and then it links directly to the actual documents from the 60s. Or we can just type in, UN gave live polio to children. And you'll get CBS, AP, you name it. But it's always, they don't know why it happened. It was an accident. It killed a bunch of them. But it happens all over the world over and over again. Rockefeller Foundation, sterilize, Infowars.com. Then it should pop up. If not, you can call Watson. He knows where it's all at. We got so many articles. There it is, Rockefeller Foundation article right there. We can click on that. I'm going to shut up and go back to Max Keiser. Max, what do you think of eugenics and the overall population program? I mean, you're kind of saying we've got a toxic environment, but is the answer just get rid of all the people so that the bankers can enjoy the planet for themselves?
Well, the toxic environment is caused by corporations, and I don't see any differentiation between corporations and the globalists, as you call them. I mean, the corporations are mandated to make a profit, and that mandate does not include making any consideration for the risks that they're taking to the environment or to anyone's well-being. So the problem at the root is that the corporate charter, what makes a corporation, needs to change. For example, corporations are protected under free speech, that even though they're making claims that are ridiculous, like these injections are going to be beneficial, and they're lying, they say we're protected under free speech because they say we're an individual. Now, that's something that they lobbied for, and that's completely false. That has to change. Corporations, the way the corporations are chartered needs to completely change. There's a state of Delaware where every corporation in America virtually is chartered and incorporated in Delaware because the laws in Delaware allow for corporations to do all these nasty things. First thing we need to do, shut down all the Delaware incorporation that's going on until further review. Force these companies to incorporate in the states where they do business and the countries where they do business. And that would immediately take away most of their ability to abuse the population in the name of profits without any accountability. Profits without any accountability is abuse.
But it's profits that also phase us out and then leave them with all of the resources and with air in their lungs, total domination, just getting us completely out of the way. So these profits are a means to an end. What do you think about the TSA? You know, the good news is even Brian Williams, the anchor, is saying he doesn't like it, that he's been groped. Ron Paul, all these prominent people are being abused. I think they're going to lose this fight. And what do you think of Big Sis trying to put, and are now putting, 9,000, I've seen the first videos of it going in Walmart, but other locations, not just Walmart's, 9,000 locations, telescreens, where government forces its way into your life, into the market, into the streets, with messages about spying on your neighbor. I mean, isn't that really just about us spying on each other instead of spying on the corrupt government, the real terrorist?
Well, I think that the TSA is is clearly an example of submission, which is psychological warfare, clearly. If you see your neighbor being sexually abused in public by a government official and you don't do anything about it, they've got you. You're submitting to corporate power, and you are never going to be the same. And that's what that's all about. As far as spying goes and surveillance, somebody somewhere sold the government on the idea that they could get a discount on buying 50,000 or 50 million cameras, and the government, the bureaucracy that it is, said, yeah, okay, we'll take that deal, never thinking about the consequences. There's no accountability in government. There's no accountability in the corporate space.
Well, the corporate guys just pay off the politicians to buy their 50 million cameras.
Yeah, exactly. So unfortunately, government is now beholden to corporations. Corporations beholden to the banks, and there's no accountability. There's no transparency.
Yeah, I mean, I love mainline libertarians and anarchists and people with their overall idea of total liberty and small government. But what they don't get is they always say, Alex, don't blame corporations now. It's government. But corporations are bigger than most governments. They have private intelligence agencies. They've given themselves this fiat made-up immunity. They are lobbying for big government to steal our wealth. And so I understand the anarchist view, well, if you didn't have a big government, they couldn't get away with that. But, I mean, regardless...
I'm glad you said this about libertarians, because we're on the same page here. The libertarian arguments I find incomplete in many ways. For the reasons you just suggested, that you can't give carte blanche to corporations that repeatedly break the law, and like these banks that get too big to fail, they get too big to obey the law, effectively. Plus, the idea of small government is okay as long as you have people obeying the law and not shrinking the government by getting rid of the laws to govern the corporations and the people who should be obeying some form of legal construct or constraint.
Yeah, there's got to be some kind of basic rules, even to a wide-open game, because the minute you have total anarchy, in 5 seconds, a strong man's going to get a cache of arms, form his army, and come and literally play polo with your skull.
Competition thrives on the rules. This is what makes competition exciting for the people who are engaging in the competition, is that they are all abiding by the same rules. Therefore, it's a game that they like to compete in. This is something that this government and this Obama administration doesn't seem to get through their thick skull, that by imposing stricter environmental rules, you actually are going to increase competition, increase alternative industries to compete with these entrenched oligarchs in the oil and gas business. More rules fairly adjudicated increases competition, will increase jobs. The idea that it's the opposite effect is ludicrous, and the proof is in the pudding. Unemployment skyrocketing, America losing its competitiveness, and the kleptocrats running the show.
But again, the mega banks openly are the progenitors of the carbon tax environmental movement as we know it. Their system is only let the megas operate, shut everybody else down through a fake environmental iron fist.
My solution to the carbon emissions problem, the global warming problem, is to let competition reign. Let the alternative energy industry and the alternative sector of the economies give them a shot at competing.
Well, Keiser, what do you do about mega corporations always buying up all the new patents?
Teddy Roosevelt had the answer. You break them up. It's not in anyone's interest in America to have mega corporations, too big to fail banks, and mega corporations running the show. Teddy Roosevelt recognized this. He broke them up.
But, Max, we have the coldest winter in 1,000 years. I mean, I've really interviewed scores of scientists, looked at the history. Just 200,000 years ago, carbon dioxide was much higher than it is now. It's been dozens and dozens, something like 50-something times higher, in the past. I mean, just the whole way the environmental movement has been set up is there a bunch of communists at the grassroots run by wicked bankers who don't want competition, and they're going to use environmentalism to shut down all their competition. It's the opposite of what you're saying.
It is the opposite of what I'm saying. I'm saying to encourage competition, regardless of what your thoughts are on the global warming debate.
Sure, no one can deny that oil is dirty and has all these toxic byproducts that they can't get rid of, so they put it in your water, saying it's, a mineral, fluoride and all of this. I understand all that.
Let's have some competition. Well, there's a lot of alternative energies. Buckminster Fuller invented an electric car back in the 1920s, I believe, but he was snuffed out by the three big players, Firestone Tires, Exxon Gas, and
that's like the tire makers and the car makers openly shutting down all the great trolleys that had been organically grown by people buying their tickets, and now we're designed for cars. We're sprawled. We have to have them because you now can't set up a transportation bus or train grid that'll work the way we're set up. They've got us. We'll be right back. But Max Keiser is our guest. We're going to take a few more calls, and then in our final segment with Max, we're going to get more into some other news items I want to raise and other points that he thinks is important on the radar for 2011. Again, if you don't know who I am, I'm Alex Jones. If you're driving along, listening to us for the first time, I'm a syndicated radio host. I've been on air now almost 16 years. And, of course, I'm a documentary filmmaker, and our news websites are Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, and PrisonPlanet.tv. Max Keiser is the inventor of the Hollywood Stock Exchange predictive trading system, widely used in a lot of other systems today. He also has hosted TV shows in the U.S., England, you name it, and is an analyst, just an overall pundit analyzing what's happening. I want to get more into gold and silver and the type of manipulation we've seen today trying to drive it down that's always, in the last few years, been followed by even bigger heights, and when he sees it going back up. But Sonny in Indiana, you've been a real trooper. You're on the air with Max Keiser. Go ahead.
Hi, Alex. It's so great to talk to you, and thank you to you and Max and everybody in your team. You've been super empowering and inspirational. My family and I have been following you for 6 years now. And I called today. I just wanted to let you know about our efforts in the info war. My daughter is 8 years old, and we talked about it and decided that out of all the issues that you cover, chemtrails have been the most obvious. Everybody can see it. All you got to do is walk outside and look up. And she decided to make bracelets in an effort to fund the Coalition Against Geoengineering. And she has a little Etsy page. It's called blueskybracelets.etsy.com. And I just wanted to let you and your listeners know about that, and hopefully we'll raise some awareness.
Absolutely. Get the truth out, Sonny. And geoengineering, I think I mentioned this earlier with Max. I mean, they've gone from denying all this to now we learn governments, private corporations, they're doing it everywhere. And Bill Gates has bought heavily into it. And we know that they can manipulate the weather. And Max, there's a lot of evidence that they are already engaging in drought creation and other things. We know the CIA has been caught releasing insects, you name it, different bacterial or fungus infections. And there's a lot of evidence that we're under attack here as well, not just by government, but big agribusiness. Max Keiser, appreciate the call, Sonny.
Geoengineering is obviously a disaster. I mean, the same people who are destroying the geology and the environment, how are they going to come up with a plan to reverse it? It's ridiculous. But let me make 2 or 3 quick points, if I might, on the trend watch. Number 1, seasteading. You know what that is?
Well, you know what? I would love to know what it is. We've got to reconnect again for the final segment coming up. You've been with us for an hour now, or over an hour, and your phone faded out once. Now it's doing it again. So we're going to call you right back, Max, with a fresh line, because I want to hear these trends. We're not going to just get your predictions, but your trends in 2011 coming up, and what people can individually do to respond to all this corruption. And there's now a new video out that we've got up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com that I'm really hot to play after Max leaves us coming up here in about 15 minutes or so. I want to play this video/audio on air for all the listeners. But while we're waiting for Max to come back, let's get John in Georgia on. John, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hello, Alex. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, sir.
Good. I'm a long-time listener and long-time researcher and first-time caller. First of all, I wanted to make a couple of real quick points to Max Keiser, if he's back on. He mentioned the pollution, involved with the bird incident, and I wanted to just mention that the biggest polluters in history, of course, have traditionally been totalitarian governments. And of course,
yeah, look at Russia, look at China. I mean, it's classic.
Exactly. And the second point was he had advised some aspiring young journalist to purchase a new dictionary, and I would revise that to say he needs to buy an 1848 Webster's dictionary, and he might get some accurate definitions.
I tell you what, John, stay there. Not only is John cogent and focused and well-spoken, he has something I don't ever really hear anymore, a telephone I can actually understand. This is magic right now. Look, we talk about a lot of negative stuff here, but that overall is positive. If we don't expose the bad, then we can't protect the good. And I just want to say this. We have a wonderful planet. There are so many good people. There are so many beautiful and wonderful and honorable things in this world. My family is so great. My wife, my children. It is just magic and wonderful how good it is. And that's why I get disgusted and angry at the globalist, at the New World Order system, because I know they've made decisions to hate their fellow humankind and to do really bad things. I know they've committed crime upon crime upon crime, and I'm tired of them. But John in Georgia, we got Max back on another line from France. Restate your questions quickly, and then I want to get Max's take, and then you counter back. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make that point about the dictionary. You know, he recommended that to an aspiring young journalist, and I would recommend that he get an 1848 Webster's dictionary, and he might have some accurate definitions.
Yeah, they have been memory holding a lot of the definitions, but you also wanted to point out that authoritarian systems always create the worst environments where the Russians would just throw reactors in a lake, communist Chinese, their rivers just set on fire. And I mean, was that directed at Max? I mean...
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, just talking about it, the dictionary immediately opened up a conversation about the dictionary. You know, so immediately the knowledge is infectious. So you're saying, oh, 1848 dictionary. Okay, I will. I'm going to check it out. So this is what we're talking about. When you start talking about the actual words that go into the sentences, that go into the paragraphs, that go into the pages, that go into the essays, that go into the screeds, that go into the Constitution, it all starts with words. And when you're talking about words, there's a place to go find words. Most people you talk to today who say, oh, I'm a journalist, they don't really know much about words, and yet words are the fundamental particle of the journalistic trade. So get familiar with words.
Yes, interesting point, Max. Anything else, John?
Oh, yeah. The reason for my call initially, the bird story. I was watching NBC Nightly News last night with Brian Williams, and they were trying to find all these possible explanations for these tens of thousands of blackbirds dropping out of the air. And I'm from Arkansas. I grew up there. And, of course, it's one of the greatest duck hunting states or places in North America. So, you know, I thought I'd, he mentioned, what he mentioned just blew me away. He said that, well, it could be fireworks combined with celebratory gunfire. And when he came up with that, I thought, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, Arkansas is not Baghdad. There is not celebratory fire going on.
Celebratory gunfire. That blew me away. So I thought I'd tell you a story, maybe, a little bit. Back in the 1970s, I lived on the left coast, and I was a manufacturer's rep for firearms manufacturers. And one of the companies we represented was Beretta. They make a very high-quality line of high-end shotguns, and so occasionally we'd run across a buyer that we'd want to take back to Arkansas to go duck hunting. And, I thought to myself, oh, yeah, we'd go out in those soybean fields, and we'd pop out of the blinds and fire, 2 or 3 shots because we had over and unders or plugged, barrels. But, it didn't take much. You couldn't miss. There'd be clouds of 500,000 that would darken the sky. And, one shot would be enough. The rest would all die of heart attacks. And we'd just be pelted and rained on. It would destroy the cars and everything. And if you believe that, why... I just wanted to comment and say, no, this is absolutely insanity that they actually believe that the American public would accept a story like that.
Well, you're right. Max, what's your take on that?
Well, look this up. I think a lot of you will find this very fascinating. Do you remember that show Flipper on TV with the dolphin?
Well, look, I mean, I know about...
Let me finish. Do you remember that show Flipper on TV?
Yeah, I thought you were asking a question. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Flipper, at the end of his life, a lot of people don't realize this, but Flipper committed suicide. Flipper the dolphin committed suicide. Animals can commit, look it up on Google now, you'll find out that Flipper committed suicide. Animals commit suicide.
Yeah, well, birds will pull their feathers out and peck themselves to death.
I've had it with humans, and they're committing suicide. They've had it. They're sick of us, and they'd rather kill themselves than live another day with these disgusting pig human beings.
Max, let me ask you a question. How do the birds pulverize their organs into liquid blood? They're claiming just bumping into each other would do this. I've shot plenty of dove and quail about the same size as these starlings. And let me just tell you, when little BBs hit them with a lot more force than birds colliding, nothing turns to mush. It just shoots little holes through them, and then you take the breast out and marinate it and cook it. I mean, this is impossible, this liquefying of the organs, unless they had Ebola and they don't have any disease. This is a real whodunit mystery here. What do you think's going on, John? Do you think Al-Qaeda did it?
I was joking, about the gunfire and thinking that they would, just masses would die of heart attacks. That's just absolutely ludicrous. But anyway, what I think did it, I think the chemtrails are doing it, if you want my honest opinion. They're spraying aluminum oxide, barium, and strontium into the atmosphere. You can test the snow on Mount Shasta and find it. You can test it because that's the water supply for Northern California. And you can test it. There's been several places that it's been tested. And of course, when they get caught, they claim they're not doing it. They're just planning to do it. Or they say that, well, maybe we're trying to prevent global warming or whatever excuse they can. But, the real reason, the real motivation is absolutely that they want to do damage to the health of the average American.
Well, they're a
person.
bunch of chicken neck eugenics lunatics like John P. Holdren. I mean, they put on TV ads. I had an article about this yesterday, didn't get to it, where they're now airing other ads where they're blowing kids up in school. They don't accept carbon taxes, where people are murdered. I mean, they're really pumping this anti-human view. And I understand Max is angry about real, legitimate decadence that's disgusting to all of us. But, I think empowering and uplifting humanity is the answer. I appreciate your call, John. Max, what do you see as the big trends in 2011? I mean, really mining down into brass tacks. What do you think the best investments are from a Max Keiserian perspective?
Well, just to follow up, right now in the Southern Ocean, in Antarctica, the Sea Shepherd, which is a group of conservationists, are doing battle against Japanese whalers. Now, they've taken the fight right to the Japanese whalers on behalf of their clients, as they call them, the whales. That's the kind of direct action needed to protect the animal species, because the animal species, as Einstein said about the bees, Einstein made a very famous quote about the bee population. Mm-hmm. If the bee population were to go extinct, humans would become extinct within, I think he said, something like 2 or 3 years. And this is what we're talking about. The bees cross-fertilize the agricultural products, and Monsanto is never going to come up with synthetic food to replace the entire ecosystem that's been in place for millions of years that we rely on for life. And direct action, like Captain Paul Watson of the Sea Shepherd in the Southern Ocean is doing right now. They've got a brilliant show about this on Animal Planet that they have every year now for 4 or 5 years. They document his fight with the Japanese whalers. He's taking direct action to defend the whales. We need to defend these animals.
Well, I do agree that wiping out the elephants and the whales is abhorrent, but then they just get everybody upset with Animal Planet and then turn loose the local animal police on you, who come and take your dog and euthanize it because it's barking. There's a more sophisticated propaganda going on here.
Yeah, look, if you look at the individual cells of, dog ownership, and people have pets, and it's the city that's divided into various wardens in America. You can't compare that to the ecosystem of the globe and humanity's history on this globe. There's a symbiotic relationship between people and the environment. And you can't synthetically wedge yourself in between you and the environment with these synthetic food products and synthetic intellectual products without causing incredible species-wide dangerous situations like we're having now. Entire species are going extinct, and one of those species is called human. The human species is at risk of going extinct. The planet will continue. The planet is indifferent to our plight. But if we don't want it, if we don't want to stay on this planet, we're going to lose it because we're just giving the corporations, as we say, the power to pollute without any accountability.
Well, more than pollution,
to make short-term profits, to pay themselves enough
more than
money
pollution.
to buy toys at the end of the year, Tiffany's jewelry.
Sure.
But they have no consideration for the general well-being of the population at all. It's not a factor on the balance sheet. It's not a factor in their corporate charter. It's not a factor in their annual report. They are psychopathic, out-of-control entities that are at war with the natural world. And we will not survive if you've got multi-hundred-billion-dollar corporations at war against our ecosystem.
Sure, Max, I need to put something in here, though. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I mean, it's common sense, much of it. The issue is they are very intelligent and know that, so they've cornered the market and control the environmental movement, and the mega corporations that own the media spew a environmentaloid version of what you're saying that gives them more power to divert off into environmental solutions that don't actually fix anything, which you agreed with earlier. I mean, you understand that that's going on, but my bigger issue is not even so much pollution. I don't want to drink it. I don't want to breathe it. I know ultimately that it bioaccumulates in Homo sapiens sapien, top of the food chain, and we're getting people getting Alzheimer's at 25. I understand this is really bad, bioaccumulation of heavy metals, but the Earth can deal with that. What it can't deal with is some type of mishap, which the physicists admit could happen with a strangelet or other things, with the Hadron Superconducting Supercollider, or with the genetic engineering. I mean, those are the areas where I've really done the study, and it's a mathematical probability that the more they do this, just open and wildly, the closer we are to not becoming a type 1 civilization.
Okay, well, so the issue is, how do you avoid becoming like a whack-a-mole situation? Because as you know, when you attack one of these guys, they pop up somewhere else. And what I've been saying all along is if you go up the food chain and you find out who's funding these guys, that takes you to the banks. And then you look at the banks and you say, well, how can we attack the banks? And that's what ended up with the crash J.P. Morgan Buy Silver campaign, because we analyzed the situation. We said, who's funding these New World Order corporate no good nicks? We figured out it was the banks, and there is one bank that is particularly vulnerable, J.P. Morgan, its silver position, and that resonated with people around the world. As you know, hundreds of videos have been made. People have been buying silver, and there's very little of it around. There's only maybe $20 billion worth of silver available for purchase, which is a fantastically small amount. And as my interview on this week's show said, David Morgan, for every physical ounce you take off the market, you are killing 100 paper ounces on the balance sheet of the bank. So that's my thought in terms of how to cut the head of the snake. The head of the snake, instead of playing whack-a-mole and just saying that they're doing this bad and this bad and this bad, they all come down funding from the banks. And the banks.
Well, sure, Max. I mean, I had you on the show to launch all that, but I mean, at the same time, it's good to go after big heads of the Hydra, but you've also got to wake up the general population to the wider paradigm, or you cut off one big head, a J.P. Morgan Chase. If you haven't cut the heart out, it's just going to regenerate another, slathering head that you've got to deal with.
But my thought on that is what we lack are wins. What I would call a win. What I would call, a touchdown.
Yeah, but what do you call a win? We blew that fake carbon credit tax thing out of the water and proved that their whole climate change thing is a fraud. You don't believe that because I think you've invested in it. Kind of like, and none of us are perfect, you kind of believed in Obama up front. I mean, maybe, Max, I respect you and think you're a smart guy. We all have different perspectives, but maybe some of us that don't totally agree with you, maybe we got a few brain cells too.
Well, the win that that I would put in the column in the last 6 months would be the TSA scandal, because clearly through public pressure, that looks like a big win.
Yeah, another torpedo we launched here on this show.
Thing is another issue, but the TSA, I would say, is definitely a win. The Obama deception, brilliant film. You're right. I gave Obama the benefit of the doubt, and it turns out that the Obama deception film that you made was dead on accurate. The guy's a total puppet of the banking system. But I guess I misspoke by saying you don't have any wins. What I'm saying is that it would be nice to take down a $150 billion corporation, a major win. Let's put it that way, a big score, because these guys are scoring heavily against us. I'd love to see us really take down a $150 billion corporation. That would give everyone so much positive energy, and it would just get so much momentum behind that. Then we can then go after some of these other guys. But if we get that big win, Alex, I think it will just energize folks so much.
Sure, I totally agree. I mean, the TSA thing is a big win because it just showed us we can stand up and say no, and that we're the majority and we have common sense. That's just one battle. We haven't won that war. I think your silver thing's a great idea, and it's got titanic legs, and it's really scaring the system. And I think overall a lot of positive things are starting to happen, Max. And, you know, that's why I try to bring on the Ron Pauls and the Max Keisers and the Jesse Venturas and countless others. And because I see so much understanding, so many different perspectives that together are moving in the right direction. It doesn't mean we're all on the exact same page, but we're certainly not part of this cold-blooded, corporate, globalist, dehumanizing Borg. We're definitely moving away from that together and then having a spirited debate on the way. And by the way, the top link on Infowars.com just went up there, is Max's brand new TV show, Keiser Report, Monsanto and the Seeds of Evil. And what is that, like a 30-minute report, Max?
26 brilliant minutes of exciting television.
Absolutely.
No, I'm not trying to belittle anyone's efforts here. I'm just saying that when I see birds falling out of the sky and thousands of fish washing up on the shore and the bee population going extinct, I'm just thinking the timeline is getting awfully close. I mean, how close do we want to cut this? Because it looks like we're down to the last.
They are I'm telling you, Max, I've done the research. They are trying to cause an environmental collapse to then offer a great green tyranny on top of it, and then they believe they can remake anything in their image through the genetic engineering. I had an IBM person tell me once that there is no such thing as a genetic malfunction because humans came from the earth, and so we can do whatever we want, and then it's part of a natural mutation because we did it. I mean, we are in crisis. Everybody can feel it in their gut, see it intellectually. I'm going to come back and play a key video, The Madness of a Lost Society, Part 2. Very powerful. Max, we really appreciate you joining us. God bless you. Let me say bye to you during the break. Key new video coming up. Stay with us. Up on Infowars.com. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.